Okay.
This meeting is being recorded.
Oh, wow. Is that what that sounds like? Huh. Never get to hear it on my end. Okay. Hi. Welcome, everybody. Um, so today, okay, well, where are we right now in our game development process? So for the U of T students, we've got about a week before you're supposed to, have the the features and the technical side and the music elements of our game complete. After which we've got another 2 weeks where the OCAD teammates are going to be putting the final touches on it. So right now we're just trying to think about what kind of things do we need to keep in mind, as we go into the final stages of development. And as part of that, I'd like to introduce our guest speakers for today. So we have with us Onome Igharoro. Am I saying that right? Okay.
Yep.
All right. And Paul Greenberg. Paul is the CEO and founder of Creatubbles, and Onome is the CTO of Creatubbles. I've already emailed earlier the link that they passed on to us about Super Code Strike. But in case that was a little while ago, just as a reminder, Creatubbles is a company that makes mostly like safe apps and mobile games. And so hopefully there'll be a little chance to see a bit about Super Code Strike later on today. But with that in mind, I'm going to hand things off to Onome and Paul, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Steve, for the intro. Good to be connected with everyone the second time around. We did this last year and it was a great experience, so looking forward to today as well. So what we'll be doing is Onome and I are going to go through a top 10 list that we've created of things to keep in mind as you're moving from beta to the actual release of the game. This is very timely for us because as a company, we're going through a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about. So it's very relevant and very happy to kind of talk through some of these points in more detail at the end. The other thing I'll just mention is, as Steve mentioned, we have Super Code Strike. So there's a version of Super Code Strike which is currently available in the Apple App Store. But as of the beginning of this year, we're working on an evolution of that, an update of that called Super Code Strike 1.0, for which we're inviting people to come in and beta test. So at the very end of this presentation, I'll put up a link for anyone who's interested to go and sign up to be a beta tester of this new version of the game, which we're pretty excited about. Okay, so without further ado, let me share my screen and we'll go through our top 10 list. So can you see my screen? Yep. Okay, perfect. Okay, top 10. I feel like David Letterman or something here. Okay, so first on the list is rapid experimentation and feedback. The point here is that although we talk about release, and of course in the context of your course, you are sort of delivering what's intended to be a final product. When you're really doing this, I can tell you very confidently, there is never any point at which you're done. It's just constant development, constant evolution. And so what you want to do is, even when you get to the point of release, which I guess is not entirely relevant in the sense of a course like this, but the mindset should be that this is sort of the, it's not sort of the end, it's the beginning in a way. And from that point, make sure you really set yourself up to be constantly doing rapid experimentation and collecting feedback and having that built into just how you work. So that's the first point. I will let you take the next one on me.
Sure. So the second point is all about having a clear perspective of who your target audience are, and then mapping out a clear core user journey for that target audience. What you want to be able to do is specify the motivations for your user at every step in that journey. And once you have that clarity and that map in place, you want to test that relentlessly and iteratively and making changes and adjustments as required to make sure that you're delivering the expected experience at each point in the journey.
Okay, so next one is a simple one. Keep it simple. And this is kind of an obvious one, and it's an easy thing to say, but very, very hard to do. The real point here is that what you want to do is minimize as much as possible variables that are peripheral or unnecessary or not central, so that you can really hone in on and focus on the core aspect of your game. So in our case, just to give a real world example of some of the decisions we've made, our vision with Super Code Strike is to ultimately be multi-platform. That's definitely kind of built into our roadmap. But we know that if we were to start out from day one, trying to deliver as we're figuring stuff out on iOS, on Android, on web, on other things, whether it be VR or consoles or other things like that, it's going to be impossible, and we're going to bury ourselves in complexity. So we made the decision to focus initially only on iOS, knowing that there's obviously a larger base of people out there of Android who will eventually serve, but trying to do those two things in parallel doesn't make sense. And there's other ways in which we've limited variables, but that's the basic thrust of it. Then the idea is that once you get to a place where you have some sense of stability, a pretty clear idea of the ability to kind of predict how your game is going to respond in different situations, then start to open it up and expand and open yourself up to greater complexity, whether it's more platforms or other things along those lines.
Okay. And point 4 is about testing. So this includes QA for quality control, but also testing out features and mechanics in your game as early as possible to make sure that they're both delivering on the intended experience and that they're fun, and also that your people who are within your target audience can actually play the game. Sometimes it ends up being too hard, or people don't use things as you intended. Another key aspect of this form of testing is to stress test the game. What you want to come out with as soon as possible is a clear understanding of where the boundaries are in terms of not just performance, but also types of experiences that work within your given form factor. So if you're making a game on mobile and you're trying to have controls that are very fine grained on a tiny mobile screen, that probably won't work as well as on keyboard or with a controller. So those are things to have a good perspective on as soon as possible, and testing is a good way to get that.
Okay, next one is around cohesion and consistency. So this is everything from the UI, the language you're using, the copy, microcopy, branding, what's happening in the game, if you're doing promotion or your website, stuff that's outside the game, advertising you may be doing, and just making sure that the whole thing holds together in a cohesive way.
Paul, can I ask a question?
Yeah,
what is
sure.
what is microcopy?
Oh yeah, sure. So microcopy basically, any text that appears in your game is copy in general. That's referred to as copy. Microcopy is small bits of text that maybe appear, for example, a label on a button or a short instruction or anything that's like a very, very small phrase that appears throughout your game. And what can sometimes happen is things like different people are adding microcopy at different points, and they may have a different voice. So you want to make sure that the way that that language shows up in the game is consistent. So a very simple example, a positive kind of response to say okay or yes or something on a button. If it says okay in this place, it should probably say okay in that place, and just make sure that that's consistent. But if you're making choices where each time you have a button that does pretty much the same thing, but the copy is different, that can be confusing for a user.
Okay, and this actually relates because, yeah, we were, after the U of T side sort of slows down and the OCAD side takes the lead, we've asked for one of the people in the OCAD team to kind of be like the coordinator to make sure that things are consistent across all the artistic aesthetic decisions. Mm-hmm. So that's cool. Okay.
Okay, awesome.
So the next point is about focus. It's critical to stay super laser focused on the most core aspects of fun and engagement in the game. getting distractions and focusing on non-essential things is easy to do, but you should stay true to your vision, and importantly, setbacks and unexpected things will occur. Do not get discouraged. Stick to your original vision and react in real time, and keep it going. As early as possible, figuring out what the essence of fun in the game will serve you well in doing this.
Yeah, and just to build upon that, this is something that we deal with, and it's really, really important to sort of sometimes ask yourself. It's a very simple question, but sometimes not easy to answer, and sometimes actually can raise, let's say, discomfort, which I think is important, which is just asking yourself, why is this game fun? Like, at the essence of it, how is it fun? And be able to clearly articulate that. And if you can't, and if you are trying to sort of find the fun by adding features upon features upon features, but not being able to sort of say that the kernel of fun is there, then you probably need to do some rethinking and get to the bottom of why that core fun aspect isn't sort of expressing itself in the way that you hope and desire. Okay, the next one is just about general polish. So this is sort of similar to the point about cohesion, but it's basically, take the time, if you have it, to just to make sure that things are, the core interactions, the core transitions, sound effects, look and feel, all of that sort of is of a certain standard. And that's, there isn't any sort of science around this, but I think, when you go through the game, if it sort of feels too rough around the edges, or if it feels like you've kind of got the basic flows worked out, and behaving as you hoped it will.
So as we mentioned in a few of the earlier points, feedback is key. Regular feedback as part of your iteration is really important. And the best way to get valuable feedback is to be in the wild. So this essentially means, if you can, having your game available in a public place on a limited basis, because you want to be able to reach, get feedback from live humans who have no vested interest in your success or failure of your product, because they will give you the most honest feedback on your game or your product. In our case, we made the decision to take the sort of early access strategy and release a very early version of our game on the App Store, the iOS App Store in Canada. And it's been there for the past 18 months so that we can get feedback from real users who have no idea, who we are on a personal basis, and use the product in the most honest way possible to let us react and make changes to the experience.
Yeah, and actually on that note, one other thing I'll say is that it's also related to this, important to look at not just what people say. So if you kind of show a game and you interview them, but very importantly, what do they do? Because people can say all sorts of stuff, but then when you actually look at the data and see, they may have said it's amazing, but you look at the data and you realize they didn't use it, that type of thing. So it's really, really important to get in the wild and just sort of see what happens. Okay, next one is just around revenue. So ultimately, again, this may not be entirely relevant for the purpose of this course, but ultimately you're doing this as a business. It has to be sustainable. And a lot of times it's, I would say, easy to kind of just assume that you'll figure out the business model later on at some undefined point. But it's really, really important to have a view upfront, even if you're not going to develop that model yet, to have an idea of what's actually going to happen and how it's going to work, so that you can justify and have an argument for how this can actually be sustainable on an ongoing basis. And also, not just from the standpoint of sort of justifying the argument around sustainability, but the other thing is that the revenue model, if you have clarity around that, even if you don't build it in upfront, it can inform decisions that you make about how you unfold the vision of the game.
Okay, and then the last point is a really important one. Do not be afraid to change course. If you see that the path that you're on with your product isn't going to get you where you need to go, or if there is a more a bigger or more important opportunity that comes your way, then have the courage not to hesitate and make a change. It's far worse to stay the course in something that isn't going to work and waste your resources, time, and energy, um, rather than making a change at the right time.
Yeah, and just to build upon that, and that's actually a segue into something that we've actually gone through very recently, which we're going to talk about, is that you also can get in a situation where you see that you're making progress, but you also can see that it's going to be what you might refer to as a local maximum. So it's got a sort of an upper limit, and there's a bigger vision that you want to hit, but in order to hit that, you can't stay on the current trajectory you're on. You've got to have the courage to sort of say, okay, this is good, we've proved certain things, but now we're going for the bigger story. And that actually dovetails directly into where we were at the end of last year, which I'd like to briefly talk about. So I'm going to see if I can do a new share here. Can you see my phone now?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to just briefly talk to you about Super Code Strike and use this as an illustration of some of the stuff that we just talked about. So on that last point about not being afraid to change course, or at least adjust your course. So we, for those of you who are not familiar with Super Code Strike, in short, it's a game about making and playing games with friends. That's the basic idea. And there's a version that's currently in the App Store, which is the version that we had developed through the end of last year, which is basically a series of mini games that are delivered in kind of like an Instagram type of feed. Every player has their own profile. Every player can make a mini game. The mini games are fixed in terms of the mode, and this is one of the examples of minimizing variables. So if you want to publish a game in that version of the game that's in the App Store, it's basically an obstacle course, which has every mini game has a start zone, an end zone, there's a timer, and then you as the publisher of the game can put little obstacles or things in the way, and people kind of get from the start zone to the end zone, and that's it. That's basically the approach. And our vision has always been to have something that's much bigger, more open-ended in terms of what types of things you can publish. But to start off with and test the idea, we made the decision to really focus on that obstacle course mode and see how that worked. So I'm going to quickly show that to you so you can see what that looks like. And can you just want to make sure again, you can see the app that I've just opened up?
Yep, that all looks great.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so this is what Super Code Strike looks like if you were to download it today. It's basically a feed. You can see that people are publishing different mini games. I also, if I tap on the bottom right button, have my own profile here. So my my username is Pasha, as you can see. And I have a feed of games that I have published, okay? So I can open up any of these ones. I'm gonna open up this one here called Around the Bend. And you can see there's a leaderboard, so I'll tap on that of all the people who've played this particular game and the results. And then at the bottom left, you can see I can edit it. So I'm gonna actually open that up. And what this basically does is give me a build view, and I'm hoping that the frame rate is not too bad for you guys, so you can kind of actually get a sense of what I'm showing you. But this is a build view. This is the game that I can kind of put together. I have an inventory of items here on the bottom. There's a palette, and then I can open up using the magnifying glass on the left of that at the bottom, a full set of all the different building items that I can work with, including things like robots and other elements that I can program doing what we call hacking. So I'm going to zoom in here, and if I tap on this crab robot right there, whoops, let me just undo that. So if I tap on this crab robot right there, I get some options, one of which on the right hand side you'll see says hack. So I'm going to tap on that hack button. And what that does is open up an editor for us to use what's called Blockly or visual coding to make a program that's going to govern the behavior of that particular item when the game is in action. Okay, so that's the basic idea. And so I can come in and place all sorts of objects, create my obstacle course, and then program everything to behave in certain ways. So we're going to come back to the front. And if I go back to the home feed and scroll down, and let's see, I'll just grab one of these just to give you a basic idea. So maybe, yeah, so this one here. So Riley's motherboard, I'm just going to open this up. I'm going to hit play. And again, I don't know what the frame rate is like. So hopefully you can get a pretty good idea. Are you able to see this? Like, do you get a sense of what's going on, or?
Yeah, it looks fine.
Okay, perfect. So this person has set a bunch of like Sentinel looking robots here, which are already shooting at me. And what I have to do is, and then there's a bunch of crab robots. I'm going to go through here. They're going to come after me. I'm going to see if I can get through here alive. And okay, so they got me once, but you can see the exit zone over there, the yellow X, which I'm going to make my way to and get to, and I've got to the end. So this is a little game that someone's made. So let's just, oh yeah, so I'm on the leaderboard here, and I can get through and get some XP and some other rewards, and then move forward. And I can either do it again or try another game. So I'll just go back to home. So what I want to do is just briefly talk about this. So this is a game, this is a version of the game that we released up to the end of last year. Over 2021, we had about 10,000 downloads of this, and we're starting to definitely make some progress in terms of retention, engagement, growth, etc. over the end of last year. And related to the last point we made about not being afraid to change course or adapt your view, we sat down and we said, okay, we have basically two options. We can either just double down on this and really optimize it and refine it and continue to build it out. But we definitely felt through feedback we were getting and also things that we were seeing, including in the broader market, that this version, this model, this approach would be in fact the local maximum. And it wasn't going to allow us to fully take advantage of the bigger vision that we've always had for ourselves, which is, as I mentioned earlier, a much more open-ended type of experience. And then on top of that, with feedback that we were getting from users, there were sort of three things that came out. So the first one is around social, which is that when you're in this experience, you're kind of largely in here by yourself. There is a flavor of this where you can do multiplayer, but it's a bit buried. And if I open up this app, although I can see at the top other people that happen to be online at this time, the level and the degree to which I can feel like I'm in here with other people is a bit limited. So that's one piece of feedback. The second feedback was around customization, which is the idea of hacking using the Blockly code. Definitely cool, definitely of interest to people, but there's a clear ceiling to what you can do with Blockly. It's a bit limited, and particularly for people who want to kind of really go out there and do some interesting things. It creates, as I said, kind of an upper ceiling or a limit. So we made the decision to switch to Lua, which is a text-based coding language, which is beginner-friendly, but has a much bigger universe of possibility. So that's the second one. Then the last point of feedback was around the immersiveness of gameplay. So with this one, as you can see, you're either browsing where you're kind of out of the game, or when you go and open up one of these, you get into the game for a moment, but then you come back out. And so this constant going back in and out of being in the game and browsing was a bit jarring. So we've changed the model with the beta version, which is not publicly released yet, with the beta version to make it so that you're always in the game. And the basic idea is that every player opens up the game, they're not browsing, they automatically get assigned what we call a world, which can be customized however you want, as I mentioned, using the Lua-based text code. and it's multiplayer native, meaning that you're in there and other people can come into your world with you, can chat with you, and have a real social experience. So that's the basic idea. And without any further ado, what I'd like to do is actually hand over the screen sharing to Onome. And what we want to do is just show you a quick example of how this new version of the game works. And what I'll do is preface this by saying that the basic kind of concept and approach we want to go for is one where you could make a multiplayer game in 15 minutes and be able to publish it, which if you are aware of sort of all that's implied in that and what's required to be able to allow a multiplayer game to be built, hopefully that'll have an impact. And also if you compare it, for instance, to other game publishing platforms where the hurdle to be able to actually make something meaningful is pretty high. So I'm going to stop sharing, Onome, and I'll let you take over.
Okay.
And we are going to build a little mini game right before your eyes.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Oh, yep, I can see it.
Okay, cool. So this is my character in their world. There's nothing really to see here. If someone else was here at the same time, someone online, we would be playing together. I see there are 4 people online right now, but in their own worlds. But let's dive into try and make a multiplayer game as quickly as possible. So if I open the menu and go into edit mode, this should look familiar to what Paul shared. And let's get going.
Okay, and by the way, Onome, what kind of game are you going to build?
I'm going to make something simple, maybe a game where there are a bunch of platforms that light up when you step on them, and it'll be players who gather the most territory will win. And if you step on someone else's lights, you blow up, or something like that. Okay, it'll get clearer as I start working on it, hopefully. All right, so the first thing I'll do is grab an item from this inventory here. I already had it in my palette. It's a moving light platform, and it can be customized through hacking. So if I select it and hit this hack button, I'll see it comes with some default code, which I'm going to edit. Okay.
Okay, so yeah, why don't you go ahead and do that, and I'll see if I can guide people through what you're doing. Also, just in the interest of time.
Okay.
So as Onome mentioned, what we do is all the items are almost all the items are hackable, and they come with default code. So the idea is that they're functional out of the box, but customizable. So you can use them as is, or you can get in under the hood and kind of do what you want. So what Onome is doing now is just setting up the basic modules that we're going to want to have access to with the Lua code. And then I don't hopefully the text is large enough for you guys to be able to read it on the screen.
Oh yeah, it's fine.
Okay, cool. So the first is just an Onstart function, which I'll as he types be able to tell you what it's going to do.
So this is all happening on your mobile device?
Yep, on the iPad.
Okay.
So what I did there was just the platform starts turned on. I've turned it off now, so the colors are set the colors to black.
Okay, yeah. So that platform in the middle is by default going to be black when the game starts. And yeah, so one of the things, just to kind of give a little context here, Steve, is that other platforms that allow you to make games will typically have like a separate studio type app or a publishing app or a place where that building and coding happens outside the game. And we've endeavored to make it tightly integrated into gameplay so that you can actually be doing what Onome is doing right now with friends live and seeing those updates happening live on the same app. So that object, the item that turns black, has a sensor in it, and there's a global function called onSensorEnter, which Onome is just using now. So what's basically doing is the first is testing just to make sure that if something goes onto that object, is it a player? And if it is, continue. If it's not, then don't continue with the function. And if it is a player, I believe what he's going to do now is set things up to have it change color.
Nice.
Okay, so that worked. So he steps on it, changes color.
So now I need to set it up for multiplayer.
Yeah. So this, just looking at the function name, I believe is going to assign one of a few different colors to a given player who steps on the platform. So these are just the colors using RGB, which I assume people are familiar with. So you're going to do 4?
Yeah, it'll
Okay,
be a
so we'll do
4-player
4.
game.
Yeah, so this could be, you know, whatever number you want to do, but we'll do 4. So the idea here is that there's 4 different colors, meaning that this could be a game for 4 players, and each one is going to get assigned a different color.
So when the player steps on the platform, I guess we need to pick a color.
So this is going to run that function up above that we just did called get color. And then just make sure that it's being assigned to the specific player. So, and also ensuring that once a player has been assigned a color, that color stays assigned to them.
So let's just check that quickly. See if it works.
And so what Onome is doing, by the way, there's a mode which we call test mode, which allows you to go back and forth while you're coding, and then in real time basically see what's happening with the code that you're writing.
Yeah, actually, now let's start it off with just the 1 square. So why don't we extend this out? Yeah, I'll delete these. I can't tell if that's symmetrical.
That should be fine. And so our tools basically, as you can see, allow you to do stuff in bulk. So you're just grabbing that one object and then extending it out. And as you can see, as you step on these, and I should also mention that the program that he was putting into that one platform gets saved. And each time he adds a new platform, it's going to, by default, take the program that he had been working on and assign it to all of those.
So I can select any one of those and open the same program.
And then this will update over all of them. Okay, so this is going to be the finishing touch, right, Onome?
I think so.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is check if somebody has already stepped on this platform.
Was it and or?
Hmm? I think it'll be and, right? Because we want to make sure it's also not
Okay.
the.
Oh, yeah,
the
right.
step.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is just a little test with the color to make sure that if someone new steps on it, that it's not already been assigned to someone else. And this is now starting to allow it to be a full multiplayer type of experience, which we're going to show you.
Hey, Paul, how did you get into this? Like, how did you get into making this game?
It was a very meandering path. Yeah, and so Onome, we should probably pick up the pace here just to make sure we give people time for questions.
Okay, sorry. Well,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
so-
need a friend test.
Oh, look at that.
But yeah, so when you say getting into this, do you mean sort of this particular version of it, or?
Well, I mean, I'm just looking at what you've made here, right? And
Yeah.
it's cool, it's fun. And I kind of wonder, like, how did you decide, like, okay, you know what, this is the thing I'm going to make, right? Like, how am I going? I'm going to go into making games. I'm going to go into making, like, you know, games that teach people how to hack things. Like, how does one get here?
Okay, so let's do this. Onome, are you ready for me?
Yeah, I'm waiting.
Okay, so Steve, I'm gonna come back to your question in 1 sec, but first we'll just finish this off.
Yep.
So if you'll see that there's already, I just spawned in right now. So this is me moving. And I guess if what we can do is all step on here, right, Onome?
Yep.
And you can see that we each get assigned different colors and we're kind of claiming territory. That's the thrust of this game. And if you step on territory that's already been claimed, which I'll do right now, which is not mine, then I will get, oh no, I don't get destroyed.
I think I made a mistake somewhere because
Okay.
You just override it.
Okay, that's fine. So, but in any case, the idea here is that you can see, hopefully there's enough contrast in the colors that you can see as we step on this, we claim territory. Oh yeah, and there's a third color there from the third player to take territory from each other. So that's the basic idea. Onome, why don't we stop here?
Sure.
And what I'll just mention is this is, as we mentioned, this is like, 15 minutes pulling this together. There's obviously a lot of refinement and polish that we can do, including one thing we didn't do yet, which is we can get access through the code to a leaderboard, stuff in the heads up display, all sorts of things that we could do, scoring, timer, all of that is basically exposed and visible and accessible to users. So with that, coming back to your question, Steve, it definitely was not a case of us waking up one day and saying, I know, we're going to make a game that does the following 10 things. This was a very meandering path where we actually started out, just interestingly, what I will say is the thing that's been consistent from day one is we wanted to use technology in a way that would simultaneously be fun, but also offer real opportunity for learning and sort of development, and also be something that was really just sort of fundamentally good, from a social standpoint. It started out actually as a hardware game. So initially we were looking at ways to program hardware, electronics that would connect to an app. And then that evolved into going through a software only solution. And let's say the seed of what you're seeing here was there from the beginning, but the expression of it has definitely changed over time dramatically. And it's just, I guess, going back to the very first point, and I'm actually going to just reshare my screen here, if that's okay. I'm going to reshare my screen. So can you see my slide again?
I'm still seeing Onome share, I think. Oh, there we go. I can see your slide now.
Okay, right. So that very first point, that's something we've been living by, and it's a really important part of the process, which is that you're not going to clarify the end state up front, and you've got to just have a rough idea and then just experiment, and it bit by bit it kind of starts to take form.
But yeah, I mean, so, but how did it end up? So, okay, I mean, so how did it end up looking like this? Like, when did you decide, like this is starting to be the direction you want the game to go?
Well, I would say that like the build view, that's something that definitely evolved over the course of last year.
Mhm.
I would also say the kind of the basic sort of voxel style and look and feel of that also over the course of last year. But it was really this kind of fork in the road at the end of 2021, beginning of this year, where we said, okay, we're going to make a shift from this social Instagram style app to this immersive text-based coding kind of world building experience. And that's really kind of since January of this year.
Well, okay, so it's pretty recent.
Very recent, yeah.
The fundamental idea of using like STEM-based principles code to create something and making it easy has been the vision from the start.
Cool. I know I've been toying with some of this stuff. We have a kind of hacking game, but it's all in VR. Yeah.
Nice.
It's interesting. It's diverting. I wouldn't say the VR necessarily makes it a better educational experience. It's just fun to strap this thing on.
Yeah, and actually, just by the way, while we're talking, I also want to just make sure that I'm very interested to know sort of what people's reactions to it is. If there's some way to, if people can leave comments in Zoom or if they have questions, that would be awesome. But if you want, if what we just showed you is of interest and you want to join as a beta user, either on your own, or I know that we've got a mix of people who are kind of computer science and music and art, want to do it together collaboratively as you've been doing in groups. We also welcome and encourage that. We have a very active Discord server, and then we also get together for meetups on Fridays where people sort of show off stuff that they've been working on. You're also welcome to join that. All of that you can do at this link that I've got up there if you just go there and sign up as a beta player.
And to clarify, it happens in the game.
Yeah, it really is funny because this is exactly the stage that everyone's at right now in their games, right? They've got something that's made. There's kind of a sense of like, yeah, like the beta testing, right? Like beta players are useful at this stage, not to find bugs, but just to kind of get the sense of like, how well is this game, evoking the kinds of feelings, experience that you're trying to put together. Yeah. But yeah, so that would be cool, right? If I know that everyone in the class right now is trying to figure out what to do for the next like week or so. But there's this idea that what you're doing right now is what's happening out in the world. So getting a chance to see what real studios are doing at the stage that you're at is kind of fun. I don't know, did anyone have any questions? We've got a few minutes until our time is done. I know that this conversation is one that can continue afterwards, and we posted the link to your game in our Discord server as well. But does anyone have a question you'd like to ask for our folks who, like they know what you're going through right now and can offer some bits of advice on things you're trying to figure out? I mean, otherwise,
I saw a comment about mining Ethereum in the background.
Well, I mean, I posited that if the games that were made in this class were released and showed to be making money, then I'm like, okay, that would be worth some bonus points. And then yeah, he was just talking about mining Ethereum. Well, I mean, what we can do is we can say that if any questions do come up and you've got something you want to be able to ask, someone other than me, then yeah, I'll make sure to pass on the questions to Paul and Onome. But in the meantime, I guess what I wanted to say personally is just thanks to both of you, because yeah, the stuff that you're going through right now is very timely for the kinds of things that our students are going through. I know that hearing your perspective kind of helps give people a sense of maybe not being alone in the things that they're trying to sort through at the moment. Yeah.
And just a question. So yeah, Steve, if you can share any questions that people may have after, that'll be awesome. And I'm not sure if there's any way for people to kind of raise their hands, but I'm just curious, having seen this, is are there any people who would plan to sign up as a beta player? I'm just curious of what we've shown is of interest.
I think maybe what I've actually got a group that's going in the summer that's going to be working on making STEM games.
Mhm.
It's part of this research I'm doing on trying to test for math anxiety. That we're making games and then putting games in front of people and then seeing if the math elements, cause, certain reactions. So I know that there's definitely groups that are drawn to this kind of thing. And I know this summer, like if you're looking for beta testers, I've got a group in the summer that'll definitely be.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, like this would probably be one of those things that I make them do, just so that like as training for what they're going to be doing for the rest of the summer.
Okay.
So yes. So if I don't get in touch with you by the summer, then remind me, and I'll make sure to reach out.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, we're about at the end of our time. I'd like to say thank you again to Paul and Onome for coming and joining us today and sharing some of the tips and the experiences that you've been through. And yeah, we'll definitely be in touch soon because there's a lot of what you're doing now that's of direct relevance to all the things that we've got going on.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
Okay.
Right. Well, for everyone else, yeah, thanks for joining us today. And yeah, we'll see you, I guess, in a few days. We'll see you on Tuesday. Don't forget the stuff about posting your final builds next week to the Level Up submission site. And let us know if you've got any questions about the last week or so of your sprinting. All right. All right. Take care, folks. We'll see you all later. I'm going to stick around. Oh, I'm going to stop recording.